In part 4 of our series on Charles Manson, we pick up with the Manson family committing 2 more heinous murders. We'll break down the investigations of those, as well as the Cielo Drive murders, and talk about the Manson family arrests, the made-for-reality TV courtroom drama, and play a little thing called Where Are They Now? I'm Mike.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Zach. I sense you wondering what I'm doing on this show. Stick around. I don't have a witty second line. This is Necronomipod.
A wandering band of members of a so-called religious cult with a leader they call Jesus has had 3 of its followers arrested in the investigation of the murder of Sharon Tate and 6 others. Those arrested are 2 women and 1 man, and the Los Angeles police said they would ask murder indictments against several others. 5 women are being held as material witnesses.
This is where they lived, among the stables, barns, and phony buildings of an old rundown movie location 20 miles from Los Angeles. They called themselves The Family. They came and went, and the number varied from 20 to 30. Police said they were a pseudo-religious cult.
Sorry, guys, I was out of the room there. I had to have Zach fill in for me on the opener. Hope you guys don't mind.
Nice for him to come in and do that.
Yeah. Well, Zach tie-in tonight because our pal Zach bought the LaBianca house at some point. Going to turn it into some sort of attraction.
Which we're going to discuss tonight.
We are.
There.
It's a really fucked up thing to do.
It's not great, right?
No, it's really gross.
Like, it's a regular neighborhood. Do you want this fucking jack off?
And it's not even, it's just a brutal murder.
Yeah.
Of just a normal family. Like they're.
Yeah. Although I will say, I believe Trent Reznor recorded the downward spiral in Sharon Tate's house, though, right?
So how many people lived in that house before Zach bought it then? I wonder if it was just like
this
eventually.
was his, Lino LaBianca. It's his childhood home.
So, but he lived there then and then sold it to Zach, or?
Probably after all
Family
this
sold
happened.
it.
Yeah.
That's what I was like. Did
Yeah.
it sell?
Well,
a few
obviously it
times?
wasn't
Like,
right away.
Yeah,
Zach
exactly.
wasn't born back then.
But,
So, yeah. So
but if you're the kid, like, are you going to stay in a house where all these murders happen? That's why I'm asking, like, how many families have lived
Yeah, I
there
don't
since?
know.
At that point,
I'm acknowledging it. It's
Yeah.
a good question. I don't know.
kind of loses its luster after like 4 other families have had happy lives there.
Sure.
At this point.
Well, it's like the Amityville Horror House, right?
Yeah. Did he buy that one?
No, I don't think so.
Somebody else bought it.
I just mean after a while it changed hands, and now it's just, is it revert back to just a regular house in a neighborhood?
Yeah. Is he the one that bought the Annabelle doll?
I think he got it, right?
I think so.
Yeah, in his
And then-
museum.
Yeah.
His museum's pretty cool. Like it's cool.
Is that Robert the doll I see walking in here? I'm going to meet this guy one day. He's going to punch me in my fucking face. It just seems so put on. I don't know, that voice of his.
All those shows though, right? Like that's what they do.
Yeah. Then I sensed a spirit in my right periphery. There was no explaining what happened.
They just do the acting or whatever they do, and then he's back in a studio reading a script.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I should say this. That would be really
Exactly. But I think he put it up for sale a couple years ago. He bought it for like $1.9 million, I want to say, and was trying to sell it a couple years ago.
good. Well, let's buy it. It's our West Coast compound.
Is that right? I always wanted to live out there. It'd be fun. But didn't Trent Reznor record Downward Spiral in the Tate House?
Sounds right.
Am I making that up? I think that's right. He was like in his dark period, Trent Reznor. Hometown hero, by the way.
Did anybody ever see that Foo Fighters movie where they're recording that album and then Dave Grohl starts killing everybody? And it just came out like last year.
I never watched. I forgot all about that. Like
Yeah.
something 666, right?
Something like that, yeah.
I
It looked really good.
It did look really good. I think it came out like right before Taylor Hawkins died, and it kind of took a back seat after that
maybe
happened.
That's what happened, yeah. Yeah. Now that movie's not as fun to watch.
Yeah, probably not.
All right, well, let's dive in. Some meaty episode.
Yeah, and it's going to be 5 parts. We're not done yet.
What?
So
There's a lot to this story.
There is a ton. It's a really complex story,
Yeah.
way more than I.
Yeah, me too. Even at 5 parts, you're not going to hit everything.
No,
it's not
absolutely
possible.
not. So where we left off on part 3, the Manson family had brutally murdered 8.5-month pregnant Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Stephen Parent, Wojciech Frykowski, and Abigail Folger. Remember, Terry Melcher, the music producer, used to rent that house from Rudy Altobelli. So whether these murders were Charlie invoking fear and Terry Melcher, like, look what I could do if you don't produce my album, kicking off the race war, Helter Skelter, copycat murders to get Bobby Bousselet out of jail for the murder of Gary Hinman, or something completely different. And that stuff we'll debate on part 5, get into what the motive for this was.
Yeah, because I'm not really seeing it yet.
When I sat down to write today, to finish this up, I was ready to do all the MK Ultra stuff and all the discrepancy. So that's where my mind is right now. I don't know what happened here. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the cases, like kind of like a Jonestown, where you'll just never know the answers.
It's going to depend who you talk to.
Before anyone had found the crime scene at the Cielo Drive house, Charlie claims that he and another male, who he would never name, went to the house and rearranged the bodies. Charlie said that he had left behind a pair of eyeglasses as a way to throw off investigators.
Oh, criminal mastermind.
It did throw them off, though. They were like, what the fuck are these glasses? We'll get into it next week, but there's some weight to that claim because investigators did find eyeglasses that didn't belong to any of the victims or any of the Manson family members who committed the crimes. And there was discrepancies in how, like, Patty and Sadie described the murders happening, Linda Kasabian, versus how the bodies were found.
They looked a little staged, I guess.
And there was some bloody drag marks. There's things that didn't make sense about it. Whether or not Charlie went back to the scene to rearrange it or not, he wasn't happy with how much of a struggle had gone on at the Cielo Drive house. So the next night on August 10th, 1969, Charlie said, we're all going back out, and this time I'm coming so it gets done right. Charlie picked up Tex Watson, Big Patty, Sadie, Linda Kasabian, Clem Grogan, and Leslie Van Houten to all go with him to 3301 Waverly Drive in LA to commit their next murders. Why Charlie picked this house is kind of up for debate, but the most reasonable explanation is that this house was next door to a house that they used to party at that was owned by a guy named Harold True. According to Leslie Van Houten, when they pulled up to the house, everyone was like, whoa, why are we going to go kill Harold? And Charlie said, we're not, we're going to go next door. And that house was owned by 44-year-old Lino LaBianca and his 39-year-old wife, Rosemary LaBianca.
Imagine you pull up to your friend's house. You're like, no, calm down. We're killing the fucking people next door. Jesus.
I know we'll dive into it next week, like you said, Ian, but like up till now, all this helter skelter, all this throwing people off for their buddy to make it look like a copycat murder, I don't buy any of that. Like we discussed in part 1, he's just a shitty criminal. He is making this up as he goes. And then after the fact, trying to make sense of it when he tells the story and writes his book. That's what I think, thus far.
You think it's all postscript?
Yeah, I don't think he has a plan for anything. I think he's just making this up as he goes along, kind of like with this situation. That's at least where I'm at. First time learning all this.
Yeah, how it's told is that when they were driving around that night, like he was running his mouth saying like, oh, it could be a preacher, or could be this. And then they end up there. And there was a quote that I read that said that, you know, he's not a master criminal or anything like that, or really he's very charismatic, but he's not like this like all-seeing guru kind of thing.
And they probably just didn't even know their way around the city. And they were just driving around like, oh, remember that guy Harold's house let's go to that neighborhood. Yeah. Like just random. Who knows?
Because when you're just making it up, like you're better off going to an area you know and a house that you know.
Exactly.
As opposed to just rolling up on someone.
The LaBiancas weren't well-known celebrities like from high-class white neighborhoods, like what was supposed to kick off Helter Skelter. They were just normal, middle-class, everyday people. Because according to that theory, you know, with the trial, it was all going to be against, you know, high-class white neighborhoods.
To terrorize those neighborhoods and teach the blacks how to kill them, right?
Like they were going to stage these to look like the Black Panthers had committed these crimes.
Right.
And then in turn, white people would attack the Black Panthers and everything would kick off. Which I think this points back to that whole thought that Charlie was a stupid criminal, like most criminals. He had no real plan for that night, and Harold True's house popped into his head for whatever reason. He said, here's where we're going.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's go up there.
Then when he got there and someone said, hey, whoa, why are we going to kill Harold? What the fuck's happening? He just switched it up and said, we're going next door.
But even that in and of itself, you don't go kill people next door to a house where people know you. Like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's not bright.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's just...
it's a trail.
He's just a dumb criminal.
Yeah.
There's also a little bit of evidence that suggests that members of the Manson family had broken into the LaBianca house before on one of their creepy crawl missions.
Creepy crawl.
Remember, that was just where they would break in and kind of rearrange stuff. Yeah.
I know what we'll do. Let's go to Mike's house and kill his neighbors. They'll never trace it back to us that way. It's just stupid.
Hey, cops, is that a footprint of Yeezys? I think I might have a clue for you.
Lino LaBianca was born on August 6, 1925, and was the son of Italian-American immigrants. His father worked in the grocery store business, and Lino followed in suit. After Lino served in World War II, he married his high school girlfriend and opened his own grocery store and had 3 kids. I also saw that he was a CEO. I don't know if he was actually the owner or just running it, but he ended up getting divorced and remarried Rosemary in 1959. Rosemary's birthday is up for debate, but the consensus is that she was born in 1930 in Mexico and ended up in an orphanage in Arizona until she was 12 years old. Rosemary had gotten married and had kids, but divorced and remarried Lino. With the kids getting older in 1968, Lino and Rosemary moved to a smaller house, and that was the one at 3301 Waverly Drive.
So literally an American dream story. The opposite of the Manson family, which is a fucking horror story.
Yeah, just your typical middle-class, hardworking people.
Awful. These fucking scumbags pulling your driveway.
About 3 months before the murders, in May of 1969, Rosemary LaBianca wrote a letter to one of Lino's daughters and said, quote, "We haven't had any robberies, but every time I come home, I expect to either find someone in the house or something missing. I think the police have stopped working the case." The LaBiancas reported this stuff to the police. They would say objects in the house had been moved or their dogs were outside in the backyard when they know they left them inside. The police never did anything about it because it's...
And that's the creepy crawls.
Yeah.
Because there's not really a crime to point to. So what are the police going to do?
Right.
That is fucking creepy, man.
Who knows?
People know where
Just
shit
a
in their house
psychological
is.
thing.
Yeah. You come home. I would tell if something was moved.
There's that really creepy true crime case about that kid that was living in the walls of a house.
With the hidden camera and he drops down from the ceiling.
The kid that was obsessed with the girl that broke up with him.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And he like lived in the walls.
Yes.
For a long time. I think he ended up...
fun episode.
Yeah, he ended up like killing people in that family though.
Jesus.
But yeah, he was in the walls.
How do you live in the walls?
He was like 16 or 17, something like that.
There's another one like that too, where like food was disappearing or something. Someone set up a hidden camera and they showed like they went to bed at night and then someone like came out of the ceiling or out of a closet something and they were living up in the attic and they would just come down and eat after the person went to bed and stuff. Can you imagine that?
Like what if he ran into him?
Holy fuck, man.
That's terrifying.
That's shivers there. And then I looked up and someone was crawling out of my attic crawl space.
Does this guy ever go home? Dave, how much do you pay him?
Zach, go home. What are you doing? You're supposed to be in Vegas. What are you doing in Medina?
Like, dude, all we needed was the audio clip of the intro. You didn't have to actually show up.
The agreed upon version of events is that on August 10th, 1969, Charlie and Tex walked up to the LaBianca's house, and through the window, Charlie pointed at Lino, who was sleeping on the couch. Then the two of them walked in through the back door that was unlocked. Charlie then woke Lino up at gunpoint and instructed Tex to tie his hands behind his back with a leather strap. Tex then brought Rosemary into the living room from the bedroom, put pillowcases over each of their heads, and tied the pillowcases by tying lamp cords around their neck. Charlie had told them that this was a robbery and not to worry. And Lino was like, I have no money here in the house, but if you take me to the grocery store that, own CEO for whatever, I'll give you whatever you want. Just let us go. And at that point, Charlie left the house, walked down the driveway to the car, and told Sadie and Patty to go in.
The whole narrative, quote unquote, Charles Manson never killed anybody gets tossed around a lot when you're talking about this case. And if we're to believe this account of the story, he's pretty actively involved in all of this, right?
Yeah. I mean,
you've heard that. Well, Manson never actually killed anybody.
Right.
Well,
Why the fuck are there Manson apologists out there?
there's a lot of them, actually.
You can go sit in a room with the same people that think Chris Benoit didn't do it. Fucking morons.
I don't know. You hear that a lot, and he's clearly an active participant here.
Well, and I think we kind of get to that at the end, right? When they're looking for charges for Manson, they kind of touch on that. Like the conspiracy charges, because he may not have actually ever stabbed anyone.
Right. But geez, if you're in a fucking car in the house, come on.
Well, it's directing them to do it, right? Like you're the ringleader here.
Well, in his version of events, this didn't happen.
Oh, of course it didn't.
Yeah. I feel like the Manson apologists are just reading his book, and then they're just believing his version of events. Everybody has their own version of events here. This is just what we're doing is talking about the agreed upon,
the official state version.
Yeah, quote unquote official version.
And I think some people just choose to ignore facts when it comes to this kind of stuff. And like they only want Manson's version.
Yeah.
Or like the people who look at the John Bonet case and only want it to be Burke or the mom.
Yeah.
And ignore all facts that clearly show they most likely didn't do it.
Yeah.
You're right. We poked holes in that entire story. We solved the case. Just waiting for the cops to follow up. We solved that case.
We will be vindicated someday.
Maybe a whole episode where we celebrate that.
It'll just be us stretching to pat ourselves on the back. Oh, good job, chaps. Oh, good job to you, chap.
I knew these boys were great.
Case well done.
Yeah, people just, they put blinders on. Once they have their mind made up, they'll just ignore all the facts out there.
Oh, most definitely.
You can still have an opinion on things, but you still have to acknowledge some facts. Maybe you don't agree with it or it doesn't fit into what your final answer is, but it's still out there. You can't just say, oh, no, that didn't happen.
In general, most people, once they've made up their mind, are not really open to hearing alternate points of view.
I agree. But what I mean is, like, you can have an opinion that maybe doesn't line up with some of the facts, but you should still probably admit that those facts exist. They just somehow don't fit your narrative.
Sure.
You have to close them out and be like, oh, no, that's hogwash. None of that.
Yeah.
It's just stupid.
Facts are facts, Mike.
And holes is holes, Dave.
So Tex helped Sadie and Patty take Rosemary back to the bedroom. Then Tex immediately walked back into the living room and plunged a 10-inch bayonet into Leno's throat.
Like a literal bayonet on a rifle?
Yeah, so the official version is that Tex complained to Charles Manson after the Tate murders, like, you sent us with these garbage fucking knives. We need something better. And yeah, so then he got a bayonet.
When Ian said official, he used the bunny quotes just so people out there know.
Quote unquote.
It's a audio podcast, pal.
Jesus.
Tex heard some fighting and walked back into the bedroom to find Rosemary had gotten her hands free and was swinging the lamp that was still tied to her neck at Sadie and Patty. Tex just tackled Rosemary and started stabbing her multiple times, and then went back out into the living room where he stabbed Leno a further 12 times, killing him. After Leno was dead, Tex carved the word war into his abdomen.
What you can see in the photos is not great.
Yeah, it's big all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
Tex walked back into the bedroom to find Patty stabbing Rosemary with a knife from the kitchen. Then Leslie Van Houten stabbed Rosemary 16 more times in the back. Just overkill, 41 times in total. And most of these were after Rosemary was dead, because Charlie said that everyone had to get their hands dirty. Tex hopped in the shower to get clean, while Patty got a towel and soaked up some of the LaBianca's blood to write on the walls. Patty wrote the words, rise, death to pigs, and helter skelter on the refrigerator, but she spelled it wrong. She spelled it Healter.
For fuck's
Healter.
Can't even do it right, Patty.
Unbelievable.
Fucking Patty. Who brought her?
Fucking clown show. This whole thing.
Yeah, awful. Is this the worst, the least organized cult ever?
That's terrible. Well, a great story would be Lino had a 45 sitting on the couch next to him, and he put holes in all their heads as soon as they entered the house.
Like
that's the story I want to hear.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. Right.
Some revisionist history.
Rajneeshpuram poisoned a water supply. These fucks can't even spell right. Like on the crime scene.
Oh, so bad.
She fucking took over a whole town.
She literally did.
Yeah.
She took over a town.
Tough titties.
And then who were the ones that had the gas on the submarines?
Shinrikia.
Yeah, like
the submarines. Well, they did have submarines.
Not the submarine, the
Subway.
subway.
They had
Submarines.
helicopters.
They didn't have Yeah,
They had
helicopters. That's right.
But they could never
They
figure
melted
out how to
people
fly.
in the back.
Yeah, they couldn't figure that out. Not submarines, subway.
I was like, wait a minute, those guys have submarines?
No, that would be a cult. But people are doing big time criminal stuff.
Yeah.
These are ass clowns.
They are ass clowns.
Shinrikia was trying to build a fucking laser that would cut through buildings in Tokyo.
Right.
Well,
Like
set your
Godzilla
sights high.
style.
You gotta set your sights high. Meanwhile, fucking Manson's driving around not even knowing who they're gonna kill. Oh, you guys don't want to kill our friend? No, I meant that house. It's a clown show.
Oh, I hate all these fucking people. I hate them all.
Following the orders that everyone had to get their hands dirty, Patty grabbed a big carving fork and stabbed it into Lino's dead body 14 times and left it sticking out of his stomach.
Oh, aren't you tough?
She then got a kitchen knife out of the kitchen and stuck it in Lino's neck and left that sticking there.
You're right. Once upon a time in Hollywood where Brad Pitt kills a couple of these people is way better.
And then Leonardo DiCaprio fucking torches him with a flamethrower.
It's Sadie, right?
Yeah.
When he's floating in the pool. That's fantastic.
While all this was happening, Charlie drove Sadie, Linda Kasabian, and Clem to the apartment of an actor named Selden Nader. According to Linda Kasabian, Charlie wanted them to kill the actor the same way. So Charlie just dropped them off and he headed back to the Spahn Ranch. Linda said that she purposely botched the murder and knocked on the wrong apartment door, to which they all ran away. And they all hitchhiked back from this stuff. From the LaBiancas, after that brutal murder, they all hitchhiked back to Spahn Ranch because Charlie just left everybody.
Isn't that crazy? Covered in at least a little bit of blood.
You would have to be.
Tex took a shower, but I can't imagine he
Didn't get it
took
all
a
out of
very
his
good
clothes,
one.
right?
Yeah.
It's just so stupid. When you just think about all this, it's just dumb. It serves no purpose whatsoever.
Or did it? Because, we'll talk about it next week. So this is all the official version of the investigation and the trial. Like I said, next week we'll talk about some other stuff. The Polanski's maid, Winfred Chapman, found the scene when she showed up for work on the morning of August 9th. And this being the Cielo Drive house, it became a media circus with the details about Pig being written in blood on the walls and stuff leaking to the press. The media also ran with stories of drug-fueled orgies going on at the Cielo house and all kinds of crazy stuff, to which people close to the Polanski said, absolutely not. This was just the media unfairly smearing Roman Polanski, a guy that just lost his wife and unborn baby. But the media came up with the phrase, live freaky, die freaky.
Right, because if you have orgies, you deserve to get slaughtered. You know who hates people that have orgies?
Who's that?
People that don't get invited to orgies. Although Polanski had his own problems several years later, and that's why he's never been back to this country since. So
Yeah.
he sodomized a 13-year-old girl.
We're going to talk about it next week. It was not just fun orgies going on at that house. There was some real dark shit going on at that house.
Even back then?
Yeah. Since the fact that Pig and stuff like that had been written in blood on the walls of the Cielo Drive murders, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office reached out to the Los Angeles Police Department. The LASO told them about the Gary Hinman murder that they were investigating, that the words political piggy were written on the walls in Gary's blood, they had the Black Panther paw was painted, drawn next to it, that there was probably a link between these crimes. However, Vince Bugliosi and his team completely ignored this tip from the LASO investigators. Bugliosi was dead set on that this was a drug-related crime, that the murders were the result of a drug deal gone bad or something along those lines. The LaBianca scene had been found at about 10:30 p.m. on August 10th by Rosemary's 15-year-old son from her previous marriage. And these murders just sent the whole city into a panic.
I bet.
There's news reports saying like you could get a dog for, pretty cheap from a kennel or pound, something like that. And then the prices of dogs were up to about $1,000 if you were lucky enough to find one.
Price gouging is as American as apple pie. Let me tell you. It's probably like New York City with Son of Sam in 1977.
Yeah.
Like the whole city was just under terror watch.
And this really split up Hollywood. I saw some kind of like editorial things talking about how Charles Manson was partying it up with Dennis Wilson. Like at this time you could get close to people in Hollywood. There wasn't this like strict line where, famous people are on this side.
Okay.
And this changed all that real quick.
Rightly so, I guess. Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think like gated mansions and walled off compounds and things like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
There's a separation there now, like the socias and the greasers, right, guys?
That's right.
I will never forgive you guys for that.
Ian and I made Mike read The Outsiders finally.
Even though the LaBiancas had been brutally murdered and weird sayings had been written on the walls in their blood, the LAPD held a press conference on August 12th saying that there was no connection between the LaBianca murders and the Cielo Drive murders. So there were two teams set up to investigate. There was the Cielo team and the LaBianca team. Completely separate investigations going on.
Absurd.
It doesn't make any sense at all. On August 16th, seemingly out of nowhere, the LAPD raided Spawn Ranch and arrested Charlie and 25 other people. Members of the family, members of the Straight Satan's biker gang, and some other random people. This raid was in response to the family stealing Volkswagen Beetles and converting them into dune buggies. They also confiscated a cache of weapons, including a fully automatic machine gun. However, Charlie and everyone else arrested in the raid were let go 3 days later. In the official version, Bugliosi says that they were released without charges because the search warrant was misdated. But we'll get into it next week because this was the biggest raid in LA up to that point. So they had to have been under surveillance to some degree. And Charlie was on federal probation. It wouldn't matter what date that warrant was in. He was just on a property next to a fully automatic machine gun.
Right.
Can you imagine being the LAPD? Like, this is literally a year after you had that horrible Bobby Kennedy investigation, and now you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
There appears to be a trend.
Yeah. Right.
So now we're in October. People in Hollywood were still living in fear, and everyone's really getting fired up with LAPD. Like, how aren't you guys solving this case?
People are scared.
Yep.
They want it solved.
And they were still working it as two separate cases with two separate teams that weren't communicating with each other. Remember, the LASO went to Bugliosi with the tip about Gary Hinman, which was never passed along. The LaBianca team ended up finding out about the Gary Hinman murder, so they contacted the LASO. LASO said that you guys are in luck because we just talked to the girlfriend of Bobby Busole, who was the guy, the Manson family member that killed Gary Hinman. His girlfriend's name was Kitty Lutzinger. She was arrested with a bunch of hippies out near Death Valley. Like, we just talked to her.
Let me guess.
Those arrests happened because of Barker Ranch, again for the dune buggies. Remember last week, we talked about how Charlie had everyone out there thinking that there was a bottomless pit from the Book of Revelations out in Death Valley, where they would hide out during the race war. How this is told. The crazy thing is, when we talk about this shit next week, like what we think of it, if you think it's the CIA doing things or what the motive is, at the end of the day, he did say this stuff. He had them out there looking for this bottomless pit. Like, that's for real.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Do you think at some point after all these murders and they're just hanging out, and does it hit them like, when's this race war going to start? Like,
I don't know, do any people in cults ever wake up and be like, I think this guy might be full of shit.
right?
He's just banging my wife over there for nothing. He made me sell my house, give away all my belongings. No, they never do.
Yeah. Excuse me, I was promised a race war. I'd like to know when that's going to start.
You fucking do that in Scientology. See what happens if you question them. Fucking ruin your life.
So how this arrest was told is that the family were out in Death Valley ripping around on these dune buggies and ended up torching a big bulldozer. I see you shaking your head.
Well, it's smart when you're hiding out after committing all these murders to torch a bulldozer.
Why would you just be out there flying around on dune buggies?
So
Don't stay low key or anything. Just draw as much attention to yourself as you can.
at the end of the day, when you're this huge criminal known by everybody, I knew who he was. Clearly, you're big. When the best thing they can ever say about you and the smartest crime and thing you ever did is, oh, he left a pair of glasses at a crime scene. You're not very good at what you do. Because other than that, it's mistake after mistake.
Yeah. Did they think they were above suspicion at this point? Like, did he think with the eyeglasses and whatever other subterfuge he thought he did at these crime scenes, like threw him off, and they're like, oh, they're never going to find us.
We just got ourselves 10 years.
Right.
We were clear for the next decade.
Or otherwise, they should have been in Mexico by now. Like, what are they doing?
The eyeglasses, that could not even be real at all. There's debate that he overheard that. So he, trying to play himself up, said that he was the one that left them there. Like that he overheard that there was this conversation about eyeglasses that they never knew where they came from. And then he manipulated it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we don't even know if he really went back or not.
So your claim to, or your best thing you ever did probably didn't even actually happen. You're just a shitty criminal all around.
Because like you have to understand that the LA County Sheriff's Department, the LAPD, like the whole city is trying to figure this out. You have to,
at the same time, they've also split their investigations.
But you have to think at some point this might get traced back to you. And unless you think I don't know, like you're a mastermind and like they'll never get back to me. If not, you should be in Mexico by now. And they're just out on dune buggies in Death Valley fucking around.
There's people that say that Charlie really did buy into the fact that he was Jesus Christ at this point.
He's just untouchable.
He had been telling people that he was, he was Jesus coming back.
It's almost as if there was some kind of mind control going on and he had no idea where he was going.
That makes sense then.
I'm just making shit up now. That would be ridiculous to believe all that.
So that bulldozer that they just set on fire for no reason, that was owned by the Death Valley National Monument. So the National Park Service Rangers, the California Highway Patrol, and the Inyo County Sheriff's Office raided Barker Ranch and another ranch that they crash at sometimes called Myers Ranch. They were pretty much next door to each other.
I've been to Death Valley. It's pretty cool.
Yeah?
Yeah, I thought it was real neat.
Did you see The Undertaker?
I did not.
Probably was on the road that day.
Probably.
Taking souls.
Souls is souls.
I believe that's one of his t-shirts from back in the Attitude Era.
24 people were arrested in this raid, and those arrested included Charlie, Sadie, and Leslie Van Houten. A highway patrol officer found Charlie hiding in a cabinet under a bathroom sink in Barker's ranch. The officer said that he almost passed it up because he thought there would be no way that a man could fit in such a small space, but he saw some of Charlie's hair sticking through the top of the cabinet door.
You haven't met 4'9" Charles Manson. Reminds me of the little guy from Ocean's 11. Remember the guy that they put in like the little that they sneak? It doesn't
the
sneak
gymnast
like
guy.
They put him in like the
Chinese
vault.
acrobat guy.
Yeah, that's what. And he's just like crammed in this little vault thing, something you don't think anyone could fit in.
I just picture him in there trying to be super, super quiet, just curled up.
Fucking nasty ass, greasy hair, just hanging out. He's a real good criminal.
Chances are, like with everything else regarding Charles Manson, he probably would have been out of jail and back on the streets because once he had permission to go to Haight-Ashbury, it seemed like he had a get out of jail free card, which there's so many other arrests. And like I said before, I'm already ahead of myself, but he was arrested multiple times throughout this whole time frame. A lot of statutory rape, because he was always, picking up underage girls, and like small marijuana charges, everything.
All things that violate the federal probation.
Right. And every time he just got a slap on the wrist and just sent on his way. Never anything. At most, he would sit there for 2 days and then just be right back out.
Interesting point.
But in this case, this time around, Sadie started running her mouth. While in jail for the raid on Barker's Ranch, Sadie became friends with 2 women that were serving time, Virginia Graham and Ronnie Howard. Sadie told them all about how they tortured Gary Hinman over the course of that 3 days that they held him hostage in his house and they killed him. And she went on and on about the Cielo Drive murders. Like, hey, you guys see all that on the news? I did that.
Smart. Heck yeah. Tell everyone.
Sadie went as far as to tell them how many times she stabbed Sharon Tate and how she tasted Sharon's blood. Spoiler, Virginia and Ronnie immediately went to the police with this information, and investigators worked to corroborate what they had said. What Sadie had told them was enough to get arrest warrants for Tex, Patty, and Linda Kasabian. Charlie and Sadie were already in custody, and still at this point, a link between the Cielo Drive murders and the LaBianca murders hadn't been made. So Leslie Van Houten was just sitting in jail on the Barker's Ranch stuff with all the doom buggies, that whole problem. At that point, the other key players in the story scattered, and the LAPD put out a nationwide alert regarding the warrants. Tex ended up getting arrested in McKinney, Texas. Patty was arrested in Mobile, Alabama, and Linda Kasabian voluntarily surrendered to the police in Concord, New Hampshire.
She got far.
They all went home.
Yeah.
To their parents.
Should have done it in the first place, clowns.
With everyone arrested, Vincent Bugliosi needed hard evidence and testimony to secure indictments for murder. He got the testimony in the form of Susan Atkins, aka Sadie, testifying in front of a grand jury, which we'll talk about that in a bit. But regarding physical evidence, a .22 caliber bunt line was found and given to police by a kid named Stephen Weiss, who was 10 years old and lived near the Cielo house. It was the same gun that Charlie used to shoot Lots of Papa, and the gun that Tex used to kill Stephen Parent, Jay Sebring, and Frykowski.
So apparently the LAPD did a very thorough search of the area.
They did. This 10-year-old kid found it.
Mm-hmm.
The police also put out a thing where they said that they know that Tex and Sadie, everybody that night, wore black clothing, and they ditched their clothes after the Cielo Drive murders. At the same time, the LA Times published information that leaked out of Sadie's information to her lawyers. So ABC News took it upon themselves. The police could have done this, but ABC News thought of it, and they timed the route that Sadie's lawyer said that they took versus, what time the Cielo Drive murders happened.
Right.
And ABC News stopped there, and there were the clothes on the side of the road. ABC called to put the tip in, the news reporter, and he's like, no, I'm not just telling you this. You're going to come down and find these live with me. Like, give me the scoop right on the scene. And he had the sheriff drive down.
With that reporter being a tough guy.
Yeah.
It's like fucking Carl Monday over there.
Carl Monday.
Carl Monday didn't give a fuck.
No. He'd go right up and just pound on people's doors.
I have a good Carl Monday story for you guys. I don't know if I ever told you.
Do you think everyone listening is going to give a shit when we tell them it's like,
no.
Well, tell it anyways. I want to hear it.
Yeah, he's a
local investigative reporter for our local Fox affiliate.
19 Action.
He was. He used to be with Fox, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Fox 8.
Is he still with 19?
I don't know.
I think he's retired now.
Either way, he was a local investigative reporter, and he would just fucking go after people.
He'd like go knock on people's car windows when they're trying to drive away.
So years ago, my brother-in-law found like a box of videotapes, and like someone put on the front lawn. It's like just driving by, like, oh, I wonder what's in these. Who took them home?
It might be an original copy. Of The Outsiders. You don't know.
So we watched it, and it was in Fairview Park, Ohio, and it was like kids had made their own, like it had production value where they added like after, you know, like titles and stuff to those movies. And it was kids, they had videotaped themselves doing like stuff in Fairview Park, like stealing people's Christmas lights and breaking them and running down the street and hitting mailboxes and all this stuff. So we sold the videotape to Carl Monday for like $100, $200, $100.
Yeah, we're
and he did a story. He did a story on TV about it. He went like one of the kids' parents was like a Fairview Park employee or something. So and he, you know, like the story was him like ambushing the parents about this video. They played all these videos on the news, like streets of Fairview. It was so fucking funny.
I love that your brother-in-law's first thought was like, I'm not gonna call the police. I'm fucking calling Carl Monday. Hey Carl, how much you want for this box of videotapes? Carl's like, let me see them first. It's like, well, you could see half of one. I'll give you $100. So deal.
We took it down to like the studios. He put it in, and he's like, "How much you want for this?" Like $200. Wrote him a check.
Like you guys undersold yourself on that.
That's hilarious.
You should have started with like $100,000 and then just met in the middle. Met in the middle.
So yeah, if you're doing doing the deeds out there, kids, don't throw the videotapes away in your garbage can where someone can grab them. Don't put it on your front lawn. Streets of Fairview, Carl Monday.
That's a real like Russian roulette kind of thing. Just throwing in a blank
like what are you doing?
Blank videotape into a VCR just to see what was on it.
Right.
That is real dangerous.
But
hey, like, he's sitting there with $200, pal. What are you sitting there with? Nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
Made a cool 200.
You just grab some fucking.
It was
VHS
so funny.
tapes.
My favorite part of all this is how proud Dave is of this story and Carl Monday.
It was just so funny. Like they put all the production value into it, gave it a name in a movie, Streets of Fairview. It was like slow motion.
I just pictured like the opening is just the beginning music to Jackass. Just like the brown. Just morons.
Like driving on the street, you know, baseball batting people's mailboxes and stuff. Yeah, he bought that shit right up. Like one of the dads was like the director of services, whatever. And it's like, oh, what do you think about? He ambushes him in the city parking lot. Oh, what do you think about your son's activities out at night?
That's about how it goes.
We didn't have a copy of this news story or anything. So like years later, I emailed Carl Monday. I go, hey, remember that story? I go, do you have a copy of that? He goes, no, why? I go, oh, we sold you that tape. I just wanted a copy of it.
He responded.
I like he's like, no, asshole, why?
It's funny.
How can he pull a copy of that for you? What a dipshit.
I think he probably was at a different station and they didn't really keep archives. Like this is 20 years ago.
I just picture them having like those big reels of film probably in an archive somewhere.
I don't think it works like
They're
that.
like, this is from Friday, May 24th, 1989.
Don't keep all that shit.
The 6 p.m. news.
It wasn't all digital back then. They don't have all that.
It's not digital. It's the old cinema film.
You think they keep all? They don't keep all that.
But that's what would be funny if he was like, here you go, pal, and hands you one of those. He gives you a box like in Christmas Vacation when he finds the old film in the attic to like blow the dust off of it.
Burn your felony tapes, kids. Don't put them out on your tree lawn.
Yeah, the mailbox is a big one. That's the definition of fuck around and find out.
Yeah. Don't do it. You'll be on Streets of Fairview with Carl Monday.
That alone should sway you not to do that. You don't want him knocking on your door. What'd you do if like on like your your Ring doorbell camera, you hear it like your doorbell ring and you look at this fucking Carl Monday and a camera. You're like, nope, not answering that. Nothing good comes from answering that door.
I'll open it. What's up, bitch? What are you doing on my porch?
Be one of those aggressive people that to like black out your face because you won't agree to anything.
That's right. Everyone's going to be Googling Carl Monday next week.
That's going to be
like,
awesome.
oh, what's going on?
All these hits pick up.
He's like, who's Googling me this week? Carl Monday.
He's vanity searching himself because he does every week. I mean, he might be a swell guy. I don't know. I don't mean to shit on him, but I like that Carl. We're getting Carl Monday over. That's Carl with a C, by the way, folks. Go look it up.
He had a sweet Tom Selleck stash, right?
Yeah.
And the new guy they got to replace him on that channel
doesn't quite do it.
No, not gonna tear him apart now, but looks as slimy as he acts.
You might be Billy Tuesday, but you're no Carl Monday.
There will only be one. There will only be one. It's a whole new definition of a case of the Mondays. You don't want a case of those Mondays.
At first, Sadie was cooperative with investigators, and she agreed to testify in front of a grand jury to get the indictments for the rest of the Manson family members who were involved in the murders. The deal was that Bugliosi wouldn't go for the death penalty for Sadie. Sadie told the grand jury how she held down Sharon Tate while Tex stabbed her, and that Sharon begged for her life and the life of her baby, to which Sadie replied, quote, "Woman, I have no mercy for you." However, Sadie did say that when she said that she tasted Sharon Tate's blood, she was just joking with her cellmates.
So funny. Rotten bitch.
For the record, Carl Monday has his own Wikipedia page. That's a shoot. That is a.
Is there a Streets of Fairview reference on there? That was a masterpiece we sold him.
I mean, it's only a few paragraphs long, but nonetheless, it exists. You've made it when you have a Wikipedia page.
The trial for all of this started on June 15th, 1970, but right before Sadie recanted all of her testimony from the grand jury. Scrambling for a new star witness, Bugliosi gave Linda Kasabian full immunity for her complete cooperation. He was willing to give Linda full immunity because she didn't actually participate in the actual murders. I remember last week she was the lookout for the Cielo Drive house murders. How this worked was that Charlie, Sadie, Patty, and Leslie Van Houten would be tried at the same time. The reason behind this was that the main charge against Charlie was a conspiracy charge. He never physically stabbed anyone or, physically killed anyone, but he ordered it. So Bugliosi felt that it would be easier to get that conspiracy conviction if the jury heard the evidence for everything at once. Judge William Keene was the first judge, and he gave Charlie permission to act as his own lawyer. But that was quickly denied because Charlie was making, quote, violations of the gag order and submission of outlandish and nonsensical pretrial motions.
Oh, you don't say.
Motion to be allowed to eat a tuna fish sandwich during opening statements.
Well, in our past stories we've told, it's always worked out well when they've represented themselves with no legal training, right? That always turns out well.
It's a safe bet. Probably a smart move.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever succeeded in representing themselves?
No.
Like in the history of ever?
I don't think so. Like, you're right, sir. Acquitted. Take the cuffs off this man and send him home. Give him $100,000 for his troubles.
There has to be a story out there. I'm sure it's happened. That'd be an interesting one.
Where a non-lawyer trained defendant represented themselves and got themselves off.
Maybe that would be a great episode for the $10 Patreon for Dave's Lost Stories. Came up with that name in my head. You can use that.
Dave's Lost Stories.
Dave's Lost Stories.
Not bad.
So that's what you're going to be doing, right? Lost stories.
More or less, yeah.
Stories you find cool, no matter what they're about.
I love when I hear stories. I'm like, there's no fucking way that happened.
Dave's Lost Stories.
Nope.
I want to hear about the story of the man who miraculously beat the system, was his own defense, and won.
I like to hear that too.
Do an investigatory.
I'll do my best. Thanks for naming my show, though. I like that a lot.
I came up with that the other day while I was driving, good. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. So you got the wrestling show, which Ian's going to take over, doing the research. Mike's History Corner, Dave's Lost Stories. Oh, at the $10 Patreon level. You get one of those a month, by the way, not all three.
So once Charlie was denied the right to defend himself, he filed an affidavit of prejudice against Judge Keene, who got removed from the case and was replaced with Judge Charles Older. However, Judge Older agreed with the previous ruling and said Charlie wasn't fit to represent himself. When testimony was set to start on July 24th, 1970, Charlie rolled into court with a big X carved into his forehead that was still bleeding, and made a public statement that the court felt that he was inadequate to speak or defend himself, so he had X'd himself out of society. A couple days later, Sadie, Patty, and Leslie came into the court with the same X's carved on their foreheads. And all the Manson family members were sitting outside the courtroom for all
They
this
caused
stuff.
a ruckus, right? They wouldn't let him back in.
Yeah, so they all, started chanting and singing, all kind of shit.
I remember seeing videos of them just sitting on the sidewalk outside.
Yeah, and they end up carving X's in their foreheads.
Smart,
stuff.
Of course.
They were in there. They had the right to have knives on them, so they were walking around with like the biggest knives that they could legally have.
Jesus Christ, this fucking people.
And Squeaky was like the ringleader of all of that.
How do you have the right to bring knives into a courthouse?
No, outside.
Oh, I'm sorry. They were outside the courtroom. They were outside the courthouse.
Yes, they were on the street.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they would like sleep out there and.
Okay. Ugh. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Have you ever lost a job, had a bad breakup, or simply just felt stuck in life? Ever wish life came with a user manual, much like our cars or appliances do? Wouldn't that be great? Lost your job? Turn to page 63. Just got dumped? Turn to page 32. Feeling depressed? That'll be on page 104. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. However, BetterHelp Online Therapy is basically the next best thing. So the next time you're feeling stuck, why not check them out? BetterHelp therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills, which makes therapy the closest thing to a guided tour of the complex engine called you. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient and accessible anywhere, all done online. Therapy can have many benefits, be it learning new coping skills, self-empowerment, dealing with trauma, or even having a clearer mind. Look, everyone deserves to feel their best, and BetterHelp makes it easier to get started. They're the world's largest therapy service and offer all the benefits of in-person therapy, but are more convenient, accessible, and more affordable. After filling out a brief questionnaire, you'll be matched with a therapist, and from there, if things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist whenever you'd like. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. So get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/necro. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/necro.
I ended up finding some news articles from 1970 during the trial that were written by a lady named Mary Niswender that I thought were pretty interesting and worth reading, just getting the news from back then. It's kind of cool.
Like an eyewitness report from on the scene.
Yeah, so some of the trial stuff going forward, we're just going to use her reporting.
Tuesday, August 4th, 1970. Superior Court Judge Charles H. Older yesterday refused to grant a mistrial for Charles Manson and 3 followers after defense attorneys complained of President Richard Nixon's remarks about the case. Nixon, during a speech before law enforcement officials in Denver, Colorado, said Manson is, quote, guilty, directly or indirectly, of 8 murders without reason. The president's press secretary later said Nixon had meant to use the word allegedly. Irving A. Kanarick, Manson's attorney, requested the mistrial after showing Judge Older a wire service news report about the president's statement. Judge Older, however, declined to grant the mistrial, saying news reports sometimes were garbled and he was not sure the president actually made the remarks attributed to him. The jurist also noted the defense concern over the story may be premature. The motion for a mistrial and its denial were made at the judge's bench outside the ears of the jury. Although goings-on at the bench and in the judge's chambers are kept secret by court order, City News Service learned of the action. Judge Older also read the copy of the news story into the record of the bench proceedings, a source reported. The defense, meanwhile, asked the judge that the story not reach the eyes of the 7-man, 5-woman jury trying Manson and 3 female followers for the murders last summer of actress Sharon Tate and 6 others. The 35-year-old cult chieftain and his 3 girls were shocked when they learned of the president's remarks, said Paul J. Fitzgerald, attorney for 22-year-old co-defendant Patricia Krenwinkel. Fitzgerald, when told the president's secretary said Nixon intended to use the word allegedly, replied, "The president always strikes me as a man in control of his faculties." Fitzgerald earlier had characterized the president's remarks, which included an indictment of the news media for turning Manson into a glamorous figure, as, quote, incredible and un-American. Kanarick, meanwhile, said it seemed to him that any public official, the president of the United States or a city councilman, is sworn to uphold the Constitution. And, he pointed out, each man has the constitutional right to a fair trial. Ronald Hughes, attorney for 19-year-old co-defendant Leslie Van Houten, said when the president, quote, finds it necessary to comment on the guilt or innocence of a defendant, it indicates that the defendant is past the point of getting a fair trial.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, I don't think the president should be commenting on ongoing trials like that.
There's trial footage of them holding up the front page of the newspaper where it said Nixon says Manson's guilty, and they're like, yeah, we can't do that.
I agree with that.
That's smarter than defense to try to get that thrown out, and you're not going to get a fair trial at that point.
No, not when the president of the United States is saying that you're guilty.
I agree.
Well, and it's interesting that, so the judge read the comments on record in the court. Otherwise, the jurors might not have known, right? Because you can't watch TV or read the papers. Would they have even known that that was said?
So
if it didn't become a big thing,
they brought it up themselves.
Yeah.
They would have otherwise never known. Interesting fact about this jury: they were sequestered for 255 days.
Fuck that.
That's a long fucking time. Can you imagine being sequestered that long?
This is a massive trial.
That's over 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
I always thought it'd be cool to be on a jury, but you got to read the room. And if it's going to be something like this, you say whatever you need to say.
Yeah.
No, if you're sitting in a courtroom in handcuffs, you're probably guilty. And that's my just thoughts in general. Fuck around and find out. He found out. Like, may I be excused now?
Like, I understand civic duty, but disrupting someone's life for 8 months like that, that's too much.
The second news article that I found is in reference to Charlie attacking the judge, which is a big moment. There's famous artwork out there. A courtroom artist drew a picture of Charlie jumping over the table.
Smart. October 5th, 1970. Hippie cult chieftain Charles Manson today attempted to kill the judge at his Los Angeles murder trial by leaping over the counsel table after he had threatened the jurist for not allowing him to speak. The hippie leader was tackled by two bailiffs who leaped after him, their bodies slamming against the bench. Manson was able to come within only a few feet of the Superior Court Judge Charles Older, with whom he has quarreled repeatedly during the 17-week-old Tate LaBianca murder trial. Appearing unkempt and nervous, Manson had sat quietly tapping a pencil against the table while the first witness of the day, a sheriff's homicide detective, was questioned. After all defense attorneys had bypassed questioning the officer, Manson asked, "May I ask a question?" When the judge's eyes diverted from Manson, apparently silently refusing the request, Manson raised his voice. "Are you going to use this courtroom to kill me?" Manson repeated the sentence several times, then added, "If you are going to use this courtroom to kill me, you know what I'll have to do." "What will you do, Mr. Manson?" Judge Older asked. Manson fumbled for words, then said, You know. You ordered me to be quiet while you kill me in this courtroom. I'm not going to just sit here and let you kill me. I'm a human being, and I'm going to fight for my life, one way or another." "I'll have you removed, Mr. Manson, if you don't be quiet," Judge Older countered. Then, as Judge Older raised his eyebrows, apparently in disbelief, Manson shouted, "You think I'm kidding?" Then jumped onto his chair and leaped over the 5-foot-wide counsel table towards the bench. As his hands clawed at the mahogany paneling of the judge's bench, two deputies threw themselves over the table, tackling Manson. All three crashed to the floor. Manson did not cry out as the deputies pulled him to his feet and led him toward a holding cell. As he struggled with the deputies briefly, he turned toward the judge, shouting, "In the name of Christian justice, someone should cut your head off." Although attorneys scattered for cover when the assault began, Manson's three girl co-defendants, Susan Atkins, Leslie Van Houten, and Patricia Krenwinkel, sat quietly in their chairs a few feet away from their fallen leader. As soon as Manson was removed, the girls began to chant in unison a phrase which was apparently part foreign and part English. The last word was "kill." When they refused to stop their chant at the judge's order, the three were removed from the courtroom.
The whole trial was just a fucking circus of this
Sounds
stuff.
like it. I read the judge started wearing a pistol on his hip after this. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Smart. I'll do it next time, Chucky. I'm going to put one in between you and right in that X in your forehead. You got the marker on your forehead for me to shoot at. A bullseye.
Pew, pew. Just imagine his gun sounds like pew.
And the three of them, Sadie, Patty, and Leslie, they wore these like kind of not matching dresses, but these dresses every day, and they like held hands and would skip down the hallway singing, and it's just all very creepy.
I think they were unaware of what was going to happen to them, how much trouble they were actually in.
I just wonder how much like residual acid use was going on, you know, like that high, how long that would last. Permanently fuck up your brain for a bit.
Good question, yeah.
Vincent Bugliosi rested the state's case on November 16th, 1970, which we're going to talk next week about some of specific witnesses he called and stuff like that. But out of nowhere, the defense rested without calling a single witness. 3 days later, everybody was shocked. They just came out and like, hey, we're done.
It's unusual. It's unusual unless you feel like the state had no case at all and presented no evidence. Like, there's an obvious acquittal here. We don't need to present anything. I don't think that's the case here, right?
Yeah, no, there was fingerprints
right.
and there was a ton of evidence, and we're going to talk about a bunch of that next week, but yeah.
November 19th, 1970. In a surprise move which disrupted a Los Angeles Superior Courtroom, attorneys for cult leader Charles Manson and 3 of his girl followers rested their case before they even opened it. Although the 4 defense attorneys were adamant in resting the case, the 3 girl defendants immediately demanded permission to testify. After consultation between the attorneys and Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Charles Older, the jurist indicated the girls would be allowed to testify. The girls told the judge they would present questions to be asked and would take the witness stand with Susan Atkins first, Patricia Krenwinkel second, and Leslie Van Houten third. Speculation over the past month has indicated that Manson would have the girls confess to the crime and admit that he had no part in the killings. The courtroom tumult began after Chief Defense Counsel Paul Fitzgerald stood to address the court following the judge's denial of a motion to dismiss all charges against the defendant. The defendants rest, Fitzgerald said. His client, Patricia Krenwinkel, jumped to her feet shouting, "I wish to testify." Deputy District Attorney Vincent Bugliosi requested a bench conference but was cut off by another of the girl defendants, Miss Atkins, who leaped to her feet and shouted, "This should be in the presence of the jury." As the attorneys attempted to approach the bench to confer with Judge Older, Miss Atkins continued to shout. "I wish to approach the bench too," the long-haired Manson disciple yelled, her 2 co-defendants standing at her side. "This is my trial, you know." All 3 girls attempted to get to the bench conference but were halted by deputies and then stood silently as attorneys conferred. The judge immediately ordered an in-chambers conference and the jury was escorted from the room. Manson, who sat quietly during the girls' outbursts, had earlier engaged in a shouting match with the chief prosecutor during the defense's vain attempt to get the 7 counts of murder and 1 of conspiracy dismissed. When Bugliosi brought up the fact that Manson had confessed to a former member of his family, Juan Flynn, the cult chieftain interrupted. "I was referring to Vietnam," Manson yelled. Bugliosi had quoted the confession, quote, "Don't you know I am responsible for all those murders?" The statement was made to Flynn as Manson held a knife to his throat the day following the LaBianca murders. Bugliosi had said, "You were never there?" Bugliosi taunted.
No surprise, they were all found guilty and all of them received the death sentence because, you know, the defense rested and there really wasn't a defense. The biggest thing was trying to make sure that Charles Manson was convicted on that conspiracy charge. So most of the evidence for this, the testimony, is all regarding Helter Skelter. That was Vincent Bugliosi's, his angle on this whole trial was that Charles Manson was furious about the fact that he didn't get his record deal, that Terry Melcher fucked him over and made him look stupid in front of everybody when he didn't show up.
Right.
And to invoke fear into Terry Melcher, he sent the family members up there that night to Cielo Drive to kill whoever was in that house.
But what's the defense's plan here? Is this a case of that they're admitting more or less that they did it and they were going to work towards the sentencing phase and try to not get them death sentences? Like
That's exactly what they did with Sirhan Sirhan.
Yeah, like, what's the point of not having any defense? How do you not push back at all? Like, what kind of defense attorneys are those? Or are they just giving that point and focusing on the sentencing part? I don't understand.
Yeah. There's really not. Yeah,
It seems like inadequate defense.
Maybe there was something going on higher up.
Hmm.
They couldn't control. They were just puppets.
Some collusion.
They were just puppets.
So they all got they all received the death sentence. But in 1972, the California Supreme Court ruled that the state's death penalty laws were unconstitutional and commuted all death sentences to life in prison.
And commie hippies like Mike Namapaw.
Hey, you killed people and that's wrong. So to prove it, we're going to kill you. That makes sense.
Tex Watson was tried separately because of a whole fight to have him extradited from Texas to California was going on, and that dragged on and on for months. But once he was tried, he received life in prison. Do like a kind of where are they now? Sadie, Susan Atkins, she died in 2009 from brain cancer. At the time of her death, she was California's longest serving female inmate. She had been denied parole 14 times, and her request for compassionate release because of the brain cancer had also been denied. She got married in prison too, to a guy.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm sorry. I have a question on Tex. Was he extradited to Texas or was it all in California?
Extradited from Texas back to California.
That's what I mean. Oh, so he was tried in California or in Texas?
In California.
Okay.
Yeah, so he
didn't get the death penalty. He just got life in prison initially.
Well, his thing,
or was it death penalty?
It was death. Well, no, it was life in prison.
So he never was sentenced to the death, or was it because of the delays?
It was because it was gone by the time he was actually tried.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Because Tex is really
the
main murderer here.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about Manson apologists. A lot of Manson apologists will call these the Tex Watson murders. These aren't the Charles Manson murders. These are the Tex Watson murders. Tex Watson took this to a level that Charlie never wanted it to go didn't know it would go.
If only they could have tried him in Texas, he'd have been fried by the next morning, right?
Yeah, he would have been done.
He'd have been toast within 24 hours of his sentencing.
Right.
Like, that'd have been it.
So they feel like Tex was, as you would say, going into business for himself.
Yes.
Good wrestling term too, Dave.
That's a good one.
Catching on, pal. I'm going to make a mark out of this guy by the end of this.
That was perfect.
Also, I'm glad, brain cancer or not, no, fuck you. You stay in prison.
I agree.
For Sadie.
Yeah. Because there's I'd say a 75-25 chance that she did taste Sharon Tate's blood. Because she went into details about that. She didn't say, oh, yeah, I tasted her blood. She went into like how thick and warm it was. So.
I'm sure she did.
Yeah.
Sure.
Patricia Krenwinkel, Big Patty. Patty's still alive and living in prison.
That sounds fun. Hope it was worth it. Clown.
Once Sadie died, Patty became California's longest serving female inmate. Patty had been denied parole 14 times. However, California made some changes to their parole system, and the board recommended that she be released in May 2022. California Governor Gavin Newsom shut that down. So Patty's still there.
Yeah, Gavin wants to be president. He's not having that out there as a tagline.
This guy's shutting down parole all the time.
That's not happening.
And maybe good for him. Like, I think a lot of them have been good calls. What changes did they make, I wonder? I'm going to have to look that up. That, like, all of these people started getting paroled or getting approved for parole.
Like the life sentence eligibility.
But, like, so that changed recently?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I'm wondering. What changed that all of a sudden now they're getting approved? After 14 times, now she's getting approved. Like, people who are sentenced to death are now getting approved for parole.
Like
something clearly changed in their rules, like Ian said. I'm going to have to look up what it was. Meanwhile, Newsom's like, fuck that, fuck that, fuck that, fuck that.
Leslie Van Houten, she ended up getting sentenced to death at 21 years old. So she was the youngest woman on California's death row. She's still in prison and has been denied parole 22 times. At her 3 most recent parole hearings, Leslie was approved for parole by the board, but Gavin Newsom said, no, that's not happening.
Fucking Daddy Newsom's just like, nope, bye.
He doesn't want this shit coming up in a presidential debate in 4 or 8 years, whenever that's going to be. That's not going to happen.
But on top of that, it's just the right call.
It is. It's not like she was in a gang and they robbed a gas station and, someone she was with killed a clerk or something. Like, that's just not the scenario. These guys are actively stabbing and murdering a pregnant woman.
Yeah.
So no, this is not a parole situation.
Yeah. And I understand it's probably partially political, but it's, in my opinion, also the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
With all of these.
Yeah, and the trials are graphic. Like, there's a graphic description from Sadie's grand jury testimony specifically.
Admitting it.
Yeah.
Before she recanted all of it.
Like, talking about how hard, it, stabbing into Sharon Tate's stomach was.
Yeah, like, that's, come on.
Yeah.
And Sharon Tate's sister, I believe, has testified in a lot of these parole hearings. Like, yeah, fuck this.
Tex is still in prison. He wrote a really nonsensical autobiography and became a born-again Christian.
Oh, of course he did.
He still gets parole hearings, but he's denied all the time.
This motherfucker got married and had 4 kids in prison. Are you kidding me? What kind of bullshit is that?
They're all just living it up.
Yeah, come on. This whole...
it's not good.
No. They still do conjugal visits? Like, they shut that down in most places, right?
I think so.
Like fathering kids, 4 of them. That guy's seed doesn't need to go anywhere.
No, we're good on Tex Watson.
When you get locked away in prison forever, your life should be pretty miserable to the end of your days.
Yeah, you're not marrying and fucking.
Yeah.
No. Are you kidding?
Big Bubba should be fucking you in the showers, and that is it. That is it.
It's just no words.
Regarding Charlie, he did.
That guy? Almost forgot about him.
He did really well in prison, which isn't surprising. I think this is kind of what he always wanted. Back in part 1, we talked about how when he got released from that 7-year stint, before all this happened, he said that he didn't want to leave. He was comfortable there. He always looked up to criminals that were higher on the food chain than he was. But now, when he was in prison as the infamous Charles Manson, he was the top guy. The only real run-in Charlie had was on September 25th, 1984. A fellow inmate, Jan Holmstrom, poured paint thinner on Charlie and set him on fire, resulting in third-degree burns. Jan said he tried to kill Charlie because Charlie told him to shut the fuck up with all the hard Christian chanting, and he threatened to kill Jan over it. So
he did a bunch of interviews in prison, right? He talked to Geraldo and all kinds of people.
The Geraldo one, I think I talked about earlier. I watched it. Geraldo wasn't going to back down. He was giving him shit.
Diane Sawyer.
Hottie. Diane Sawyer.
Yeah, he did a ton of interviews. And then
he had to come up with a story of why the fuck he did all this random shit and try to make sense of it and make himself look like a genius.
He did not look like a genius in the interviews.
No, he just says random shit.
I think that was part of, we'll save it for next week because I don't know the whole MK Ultra stuff. So I'm interested to hear about that.
Charlie got denied parole 12 times. And after that 12th time in the late 90s, he just stopped showing up to hearings. Kind of like Ed Kemper. He still gets them all the time out in California, and he just doesn't go. In 2009, Charlie got caught with a cell phone in prison, and he had called people in California, New Jersey, Florida, and British Columbia. Authorities said that they had no idea where he got that phone from, who the people that he called, like who those people were, or why he called them.
I was trying to make some extra money. Charlie Manson calling for AT&T. Are you happy with your current cell phone plan? Just trying to make some commission.
Oh, hey, Chuck. Actually, I'm not. What can you offer for me?
The following year, in 2010, Charlie recorded an album of acoustic songs that was produced by Black Flag frontman Henry Rollins. There were 5 copies pressed to vinyl. Henry Rollins has 2, and the other 3 were given to Charlie, and who knows where they are now. Those songs have never been heard by the public. That's another thing.
Did you buy that album?
No, this is like Zach Baggins in the beginning when buying the LaBianca's house.
Yeah, what's up with Henry Rollins?
Yeah, like it's just gross.
Yeah.
We don't need to do that.
You ever give an explanation for that?
Not that I know of.
I'm generally a fan of Henry Rollins, but I'm not sure I love this.
There are a ton.
I like his work in Bad Boys.
What was?
He's in I think it's the first one.
Was he?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It's like one of their squad leaders or something. I think
Was
it's
it
the first or second?
All right.
Yeah. I can't remember which one it was. I liked Manson's voice. I would like to hear this album. I'm not going to pay for it and give him money or anything. I'd be interested to hear it. When you played that Beach Boys one of, 900 weeks ago when we started this thing, his voice was really good.
The thing about this part of it is, so he was convicted of the conspiracy, but he orchestrated these murders. I guarantee he had his hand in killing someone we'll talk about next week. He admitted to raping underage girls this whole time. Like, he should just sit in jail. We don't need to record his singing and produce it.
Did Henry ever provide any sort of explanation on why he did this?
I don't know.
I don't love it.
He's in Bad Boys 2, by the way. I looked it up.
Okay.
And like the Zach Baggins thing, like, how fucking stupid.
Yeah,
like, how do you think the LaBianca kids would feel about that?
It's just gross.
You know?
It's gross.
Were the LaBianca kids still alive?
I would
I
assume
wonder what
some
they
of them
said
had
about
to.
that.
I would assume some of them.
I was
would have
sitting
to
on my couch when I noticed them coming at me out of the corner of my right periphery.
Like you find this big, I don't know, TV star who's known for like the high profile killer cases now buys the house where your parents were brutally murdered.
Yeah.
If I was those kids, it'd piss me off.
I'd be super fucking pissed.
I'd probably write a strongly worded letter.
Yeah.
In this day and age, a strongly worded tweet. I'd tell him what's up.
In 2014, Charlie got engaged to 26-year-old Afton Burton, who he gave her the nickname Star.
Oh, aren't you cool?
She looks a lot like Sadie from back in the late 60s.
She sure does.
Exactly.
He looks just
like
like her.
Like, there's a reason he picked Star to be his wife.
That's not creepy at all.
They got a marriage license on November 7th. She had been visiting him in prison for at least 9 years and created a bunch of websites saying that Charlie was innocent. He kind of like teased her along with this marriage license. Like, the marriage license came at like the last second here, because she was interested in him that way over this whole 9 years. Like, they had this long relationship.
What's not to love?
Yeah, he had a swastika on his forehead at that point. He changed the X into a swastika. The wedding license expired on February 5th, 2015, without the ceremony happening. It was reported that Charlie canceled after he found out that Star wanted to marry him so that she and her friend Craig Hammond could use Charlie's corpse as a tourist attraction and kind of like tour his body around.
Wow.
According to this reporter, Daniel Simone, at that point in Charlie's life, he fully believed that he would never die and used the possibility of this marriage as a way to get Star to keep visiting him and bringing him gifts. Like, he's like, I'm never going to fucking die. So
I'm fucking Jesus, right?
Yeah, so I'll just string her along and she'll just keep giving me stuff.
Yeah, this guy. So that must mean he's still around today, right?
He is not.
What?
He died in 2017. He had a heart attack resulting from respiratory failure that was brought on by colon cancer. He had been sick for a long time leading up to that. He was 83 years old.
Lived a lot longer than he should have.
And there was a big fight for his body afterwards. He had a longtime pen pal. They went back and forth for years. This pen pal said, hey, Charlie sent me his will, so I get the rights to his body. His biological grandson came forward and was like, nah, I want it. There were DNA tests that had to happen to give it to his grandson.
That grandson looks just like him too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Didn't really need that DNA
he did
test.
not need the test.
But it still goes on today. They're still, the pen pal and his grandson are still fighting over the estate, which I'm guessing it's just possessions, like what was in his cell. I mean, maybe those vinyl records are in there because those would be worth a fuck ton of money.
Where would they go?
Yeah. But yeah, those two are still fighting over that. And the fight over his body went on for a while. Like he was just sitting in a morgue because he died on November 19th, 2017. And he was cremated on March 20th, 2018.
Yeah.
So he was just sitting there while everybody was having legal fights over his body. And that's where we'll pick back up on part 5. In part 5, we'll wrap this up, go over a ton of evidence that suggests most of what we talked about regarding the trial and things like that are total bullshit. Get into
So we're going to discount this whole episode that we just did?
Yeah, right. But it's crazy, but you have to talk about this because...
Well, because this is the official version that we just talked about. And if that's not accurate, then...
Right, and Vincent Bugliosi wrote Helter Skelter, which is the best-selling true crime book of all time. And in that book, he lays out that firm Helter Skelter theory that he tried Charles Manson on.
Which is the race war, right?
This was to scare Terry Melcher and kick off the race war.
But earlier in this episode, we had said Bugliosi was dead set that this was a drug. Those are drug crimes.
Before he knew that Charles Manson was responsible for it.
Okay.
That was the investigating.
Right.
That's the way
that was the early stage.
He called Carl Monday, helped him out. They figured it out. Got it.
Yeah, I mean, part 5, we're going to kick it off with evidence to show that Terry Melcher might not have actually been that scared of Charles Manson, that there was some evidence that he went out to Barker Ranch after the Tate murders happened.
Wow. Interesting.
All kinds of stuff.
I have a question. Ian.
Sure.
So in a lot of our other cult episodes that we've done in the past, you've had a lot of sympathy sometimes for some of these cult members that got caught up and under the influence of the cult leader. Do you have any of that for these, like Patricia and Sadie and these other ones?
No, I don't think so.
Way? No, you don't view it in the same way. Like they were under this guy's spell and brainwashed, and they weren't really responsible for their actions.
Yeah, no, because with like Jonestown, like Maria Katsaris, who was on the audio tape, like shouting orders, you know, she was a diehard Jim Jones believer, obviously, but nah, she had a hand in that. So
yeah.
So what makes this one different than in your opinion? Why are they not like the typical, maybe sympathetic?
Oh, like some of the
followers?
members I feel bad for sure.
But you think just like the main cast is they're just evil people?
Yeah. There's something off with you if you're able to do that.
And they were young kids too. Like that's not normal behavior for 21-year-old girls.
Who was
for
the
most
15-year-old he picked up in his van in part 1? Or were they 16?
Squeaky?
When he was like, hey, why don't you ditch the loser?
Oh, no, that was...
He did the Matthew McConaughey. You ditch
all right.
zeros and get with the heroes.
That was Stephanie Schramm from last week.
Okay.
She was like right at the very end.
Do we ever get
and she got there for the good part.
We can get back into her?
Yeah, tomorrow or next week we'll talk about her some more.
All right.
There's a lot left to cover still.
There's a lot.
God damn.
This would have been like a fucking 24-page outline tonight.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully people like the news report thing. I just thought it was cool.
It was like an eyewitness account. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I stumbled upon an archive online of all kind of stuff from the 70s.
What kind of website did that look like?
It was actually pretty good looking.
Oh, yeah?
It wasn't
like
terrible.
The flashing neon fucking UFO. It's just the UFO community that sucks. That updating their websites.
The ghost community sucks too. Anything paranormal is not great.
Come on, people.
Step it up a little bit.
Oh. At this point, just move it to Reddit. Like, that's what you got to do, right? Like Reddit or a Twitter. Like, you don't even need a website anymore. Just do that. You go with your paperwork over there, pal. Wasn't that last week?
Was that loud?
He was trying to. Was that last week? He was trying to turn the page. You remember that, Dave?
Yeah, I do.
And he was like,
somebody triple stapled my page or something. Got stuck. I don't know what's happening.
I don't know who did that. Fucking Declan. We got to stop with that guy. I think it's time
You want to fire him?
between us three and nobody else. This doesn't get out. It's time to let him go.
He's not doing a good job for you.
We shouldn't hire his sister, Destiny.
Really?
You should see the cans on her. I say we fire Declan and hire his sister, Destiny.
I have no problem with that.
She's 23 years old. Me gusta. All right.
So let it be written. So let it be done,
All right,
motherfucker.
so tomorrow, Ian, you fire him, and then we'll hire Dave and I'll hire Destiny.
All right. What's that interview process going to look like?
Well, we got kayfabe out on air, right? Dave, what do we got?
I have some new patron shout outs tonight. First off, my ex-fiance Jessica is an evil, heartless bitch. Love you guys. It's a bold statement, huh?
It really is.
Sorry, Jessica. You know.
What's her side of the story?
Yeah, can we get her side?
Now I want to do like a Larry King type interview with like both of them on each side and just like, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on. That was more UFC, but still.
Yeah.
Then I'll hunch over, I'll my microphone down here like Larry King and make a thing of it.
Thank you to new additional patrons, Nolan Orr, Ryan Mingus and 5, John Malik, Mike likes getting teabagged. Is that true?
It's not me. Maybe it's
some other
I think
Mike.
they're referring to themselves.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Amber L, Asthma Witch, Heather Hurlbert, Throat Hammer.
Yeah.
Throat Hammer.
USA. USA.
Sean Slayton, Max Woolman, Sam Howard. Listen to Big Drag Band on all platforms today. Also, Bo loves Necronomipod. You guys rock. I actually listened to this album the other day. It's pretty good. I like it.
So you did research on his name.
I saw the new patron come through, and I said, I've never heard of Big Drag. So
Wow.
I pulled it
Look
up
at
on
you.
Spotify, and I listened to the album. It's pretty good. I like it. So if anyone wants some new music, check out Big Drag.
Dave also recommends The Outsiders, so take it with a grain of salt.
Fuck off. Outsiders is great. Arsonista, Mark Andrew LeBlanc, Holly Cole, Keely Flowers, Maria Hinks Reyes, Melissa Coral, Diego Gomez, Jordan Woodring, Andy Laskowski, Alyssa Verdolchek, Donovan Beaver, Lori Perez,
Do you think that was a down in her beaver?
not Donovan, down in her beaver.
Maybe. I don't know. Sometimes when I hear names like that, I'm always just like, are they up to something?
Donovan Beaver.
Maybe.
That sounds like somebody's up to
Yeah,
something.
he's up to something. There's some tomfoolery going on with that name. That's not your name, Mr. Beaver.
Wait one damn minute.
That's probably his real name, and he's just like, what the fuck? Just fucking buried this guy.
It's what my parents' name is. It's not my fault.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Where we stop here? Lori Perez, Joe Kirby, Anthony Marcelino, and E. Norma Skock.
Oh, that's a real name. I love Miss Skock.
Rebecca Keaton, Scott Fitzgerald, Gabby Marino, Dave's Crusty Poop Sock.
What?
What's up? What is that?
They're referring to themselves. It's third person. It's not you. Why would you have a crusty poop sock?
Do people poop in their sock? What does that mean?
I don't even understand the reference. Is it a condom thing? Like a anal joke?
Teenage boys jerk off in their sock, but you poop in it too?
But is this like an anal joke, probably?
Maybe.
Are we proving how old we are and we don't know what like an anal sock is? Like, you fuckers don't even know what a fucking anal sock is? Oh. I remember my first beer.
Amanda R., Tim Connolly, Alexis Jimenez. It's with a G. Jimenez?
Oh. I was like,
with a J, it's Jimenez,
Yeah.
right? I've never seen Jimenez. Jimenez.
we're giving them more
One of those
publicity
is
than they ever
one of those
imagined,
is
so-
proper.
Yeah.
One of those is right. Dixon Butts,
Jesus Christ.
Holden Garmany, Louise Thompson, Nick Batty, Christy, Shia Lee, Sabrina Randall, Brandy Bibb, Joseph, 90s to the future, Garofalo. Thank you, all new patrons.
Good stuff. That's a lot of patrons. Ian, what do you got?
For iTunes, I have one for Karma Please 991, Bipperhern, Spyro 38, Awesome McGingerstein, and Yelma 3. Thank you guys for the awesome reviews.
International, Dave.
International. I have Blonder Ella from Canada and Close Your Blinds Australia, obviously from Australia. They pop in with updated reviews now and then.
Because we've done Close Your Blinds before. Right?
Oh, yeah. They just update it because they're good peeps.
You don't want your blinds fucking open and there's a fucking kangaroo staring at you like fucking Nate Diaz pose, like fucking make a move.
Oh, you better close them.
Yeah, close those blinds. Military?
No military this week. I have some shout outs for some people that sent us some gifts to our P.O. box, though.
I know. I feel like people were like a month late on the Christmas. Maybe
like delay. Maybe we didn't pick up stuff in a timely manner. I don't know. There's a delay with the post office sometimes.
Yeah.
So I have a shout out to Ashley Derlin, Little Bird Cove. She sent us some custom Blue Chew stickers. We're going to put those on Mike's car right away. Thank you so much for those.
Choo-choo!
Thank you to Shania. Sent us some Jackass Joe's UFO jerky.
A ton of jerky.
Quite tasty. We had a little bit before
There's
the show tonight.
lot of jerky.
A lot of jerky in there.
Can't wait to get into all those flavors.
Delicious.
Alligator jerky included.
I like alligator. It was good.
Beer flavored jerky.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of jerky. I can't wait to eat that meat.
That's going on in soundboard. Thank you to Angie. Sent us a nice drawing print from the Burbs, telling us that we should have did.
She was very upset we didn't do that on
the movie show.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Look, sometimes shows get canceled. It happens. It's higher ups. We can't control it. It's the higher ups.
We have to answer the executives at Cool Down Media.
Yeah.
So, we don't always make our own decisions.
What are you going to do?
And then one more. Thank you to Joey. Sent us a nice picture of his Hog Wild truck. Some stickers.
This nice picture of his hog wild truck. Oh, God. It's almost been 3 hours.
That's pretty sweet. This truck Joey sent us.
It's a hog wild truck.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks to everybody who sent us
I want to know
stuff.
more about this truck. Kind of
The Hog Wild. Like what goes on in that truck?
Yeah, and what's it up to?
Slaying. That's what it's up to.
Oh, yeah. Thank you to all those people. That's really cool. We got some good stuff. It's nice to get gifts from people that just listen to the show and just want to send us stuff.
It's
like,
very
I'm a big
cool.
jerky fan. Send us jerky. I'm going to fucking eat it all day long.
Yeah.
I tried alligator for the first time.
Alligator
today,
was
so-
real good.
Yeah. A lot more to try, pals. We should just keep it down here in case we ever have to like hunker down here in our hole, much like Manson. If there's like a race war that breaks out, we could have like 10 pounds of jerky.
Race war.
You never know what's going to happen up there.
Let it be known if there's a race war, I'm on Megan Thee Stallion's team. So take that for what it's worth.
Megan the Stallion, pal. Not Megan a Stallion.
Megan the Stallion. I'm on her team. I'm Team Megan in the race war.
Who did I
I've
see?
chosen my side
Who did I
already.
see recently that I was like, oh, it's Ashanti I saw.
Dude. Did you see Ashanti's pic today that she posted?
No, Dave, I don't
Holy
follow all these
fuck.
people like you do. But she is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
So hot.
Oh, yeah.
She was hot back when I used to watch her on TRL. And I
Back
lost
when
touch.
Ja Rule was fucking her with her skirt on in the backseat of the Yukon.
Every thug needs a lady, yeah. Ashanti is like the perfect MILF now, but like even hotter. She's so hot.
I agree.
Big fan. Big fan. Me gusta Ashanti.
Holla, holla.
Also still like Cardi B. I like Cardi B.
Oh, I love Cardi B.
Yeah. Well, who doesn't? Come on. That's going to be a fun time.
I listen to Cardi B playlist when I lift weights. I don't know. It just works.
Do you?
Like Pantera and Cardi B. That's my lifting weights music. And it's up and it's up. It just works, man.
Great song. Maybe I'll work on, now that fucking we're going to fire Declan, maybe Destiny can get us like Cardi B or Ashanti in studio. I'll have her work on that.
Really?
Well, we'll see what she can do, or else she'll be fired. Because you will not be good at her job.
She probably takes after her brother.
Well, I think she'll be better. She's a female, right? She's got to be better.
True. It's a good point.
Ian, let us know how the conversation with Declan goes.
All right, I'll fill you guys in. Maybe I should do it on Friday.
It's the best day. We're going to fire someone, right?
Let them have the weekend to chill out.
It's from The Office, right?
Is it from The Office?
Remember when Michael has got to fire somebody? Like in one of the first early episodes?
Creed talks him out of it. He makes him fire that other guy.
Creed, it was going to be Devin, Creed, Devin. And then at the end of the series, when Dwight takes over, he fires Devin back, which is just one of the most fucking brilliant things that show ever did. They bring back like really a non-character that's just like a, what do they call those little like hidden things?
Like an Easter egg?
Like an Easter egg almost.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like an Easter egg. Like when he's like, I hired, which one I call it? What the fuck did I say his name was?
Devin.
Devin.
Yeah.
I hired Devin back.
Fantastic.
You're like, this is great. I always liked him. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at Necronomipod. Check us out on Spring for all of our merchandise. We are also, I think, some of our clothing merchandise is available on Amazon. Just search Necronomipod. Make sure Amazon is a seller on that. Patreon.com/Necronomipod if you wish to check out the bonus content. We got 3 shows a month at the $5 level, 4 shows a month at the $10 level. And
ad-free early releases.
Ad-free early releases at the $10 level as well.
And a sticker.
This gets better and better.
It's the best. It's the best deal in town.
So check us out.
And you get to vote on the bonus shows every month.
You get to vote. What? You get to vote on a bonus show every month. We give you 3 topics to pick from. You get to vote on that. It pays for itself.
It's fantastic.
Okay.
All right, you guys ready for a cool down beer?
Cheers.